Oh hey guys, I just watched the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. I didn't like it that much. Oh hey guys, I just watched the Five Nights at Freddy's movie 2. I didn't like it that much. It's really weird to think about that we now live in a world where not just one, but two Five Nights at Freddy's movies exist. I mean, with the development issues of the first one that swapping studios like 5 times, it's weird to think that we even got it, and now to have the second one. I remember being a young kid and first hearing the news that a Five Nights at Freddy's movie was in the works, and I could not have been a more happy camper, and now over 10 years later with the sequel out, it's still pretty cool. I made a review of the first movie after it came out and gave my general thoughts. I thought it was fine. There were definitely a lot of parts of the movie I didn't enjoy, but the parts that I did enjoy definitely made up for that. There were definitely things that worked well in the movie. I think the plot and general essence of the games were there, but as a movie, it fell pretty short and more or less worked as an addition to the games rather than a standalone movie. But after the reviews came in and they weren't so hot, one of the first things they said they were gonna do while making the sequel is take into account the criticism of the first movie to hopefully make a movie both fans and general audiences could enjoy. With all that, this movie is probably worse than the first one. This movie opens up with a scene that I would actually say is better than the opening scene in the first movie. With the whole opening scene in the first movie being like a night in the pizzeria of this guard running away from the animatronics and he gets his face all slashed up with the big Freddy mask, which I think does a good job at setting up that, oh, these guys are evil, but not a whole lot else. Now this movie opens up with a flashback of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza back in the 1980s, where we see this girl who is later revealed to be Charlotte Emily, Henry Emily's daughter, the co-founder of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Anyway, she's waiting for the marionette to pop up on stage and suddenly she sees some kid being pulled into the back room, so she tries to alert all the parents. They ignore her because they suck, also plot convenience, we'll get to that in a sec. And she runs into the back room, finds the kid laying on the ground, saves him, and ends up dying in the way. Although somehow in the movie this is classified as an accident, even though you can very clearly see 3 stab marks in her back. Yeah, I don't know how that happened. But after all that, she's picked up dead by the marionette, and using this universe's logic, she is now the marionette. Now going into the rest of the movie, which for the first while just works as an epilogue for the first movie, which of course it's a sequel, it has to do that, but this movie takes a whole lot of time at the start to do a whole lot of nothing. It sets up a few things like Mike and Vanessa are going out, they're f***ing, which, I thought I warned you, Mike, she's crazy, she just threatened to shoot you like a year ago, why, but whatever, not my problem. And also Abby is not exactly fitting in well at school. She keeps telling all the other kids, oh, I went to Freddy's and the animatronics were alive. None of them really believe her, but she still is a little popular at school and she has a couple friends because, I don't know, yeah, the stories are cool. And she's also in robotics. This whole opening epilogue of the movie kind of reminds me of the Minecraft movie opening, which is not the greatest comparison here. It isn't for a while in the movie where the plot actually does anything, but after a while, Mike takes his sister Abby back to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza for some f***ing reason and gives her a toy that allows her friends to talk to her. So the puppet is the main villain of this movie. Sorry, the marionette. She is actually the only spirit compared to the first movie where there's like 4 or 5 spirits. I don't know what the cupcake is. But she is the main aggressor in this movie. She's evil. And she's also not being controlled by William Afton like the robots in the first movie. No, she's acting on her own accord, but she doesn't just want to kill people. She only wants to kill parents because she blames her death on parents because at the start of the movie, they're dicks to her, they ignore her. I don't know, considering the fact that you were killed by William Afton, I would probably blame William Afton for your murder, but I don't know, I'm not dead, so I don't know who to blame yet. So the puppet wirelessly controls all the other robots in the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location, and she tricks Abby into letting all their animatronics go out into the wild, so, dangerous. We also do get another villain introduced around this time in the movie, being Michael Afton, the son of William Afton. How did I know? Michael Afton is such a weird addition to this movie. Not that he doesn't work, because he does. I mean, he has a clear motivation. He wants to avenge his father, after he dies in the first movie. Basically, he just keeps luring people to the old Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location and has them killed, It makes sense, he's a bad guy, he does bad things. He is used so little in this movie. In fact, I think he has 2 pretty quick scenes altogether in the movie. It almost makes me want to say he might have been a last-minute addition, but I'm not sure about that, so, don't quote me on anything. He shows up at the start where we meet these TV ghost hunters, which he has all killed in Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, where the puppet takes over the body of the hot girl, and she looks like the puppet now. I'm not really sure what's up with this, because I think she's dead, but the same thing happens to Abby later in the movie, and she lives, so I don't know. But yeah, Michael Afton just disappears for the rest of the movie. But now Mike and Vanessa, they realize, oh, Abby's missing, and they go to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza to go look, but oh no, the animatronics aren't there. Or at least the toy animatronics aren't there, because now we're introduced to the Wizards. I like the Wizards a whole lot. They look really cool, and they actually are utilized pretty well in this movie. But I actually kind of wish they were used more in this movie. They're used for one really good scene where Mike is like playing Five Nights at Freddy's, like how you would on your computer, but in real life. And they're all hunting him down. I mean, he's fucking horrified. I mean, have you seen these guys? But you may wonder, what's up with the toy animatronics? Well, they're everywhere. They're all around town. Basically, they're hunting for parents to kill because, the marionette blames parents for her death. Still, I don't know what's up with that motivation, but it works for what they want to do. Kill people. What's weird about the animatronics in this movie is that they actually have voices, unlike the first movie, which is actually one of the things I enjoyed most about the first movie, is that they didn't make the animatronics talk, because as easy of a decision as that would have been to make, and they could have, gotten some big old celebrities to voice them, it is a lot scarier to have these guys mute. They talk in this movie, so, thanks. The voice actors here actually do a really good job at still making these characters scary, because it kind of feels like the second I hear a word come out of Freddy Fazbear's mouth, almost all the fear is taken away, which is a little true, but I think that they work well for what they're supposed to do in this movie. Toy Chica is kind of the main used animatronic in this movie for some reason, and she's voiced by Megan Fox, which is a pretty good fit for Toy Chica. I mean, have you looked at Toy Chica? I sure have. Megan Fox does a pretty good job, all things considered. And then, of course, you got Matt Pat as Toy Bonnie. I was kind of expecting Matt Pat to just sound like Matt Pat. I thought Toy Bonnie would open his mouth and he's like,
"Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory."
No, he doesn't. He actually kind of sounds like a girl, which I'm not sure if they use like a filter or something. In fact, I didn't even think it was Matt Pat. I thought, oh, they just used it for the marketing and, didn't actually in the movie. But no, he is credited as Matt Pat or he's credited as Matthew Patrick, but still, Toy Bonnie is voiced by Matthew Patrick, but I couldn't really tell. Good actor and all, that really that shows that he's doing a good job. And of course, you got Kellen Goff as Toy Freddy. I really like Kellen Goff. He's kind of the go-to Freddy voice actor. He voiced Funtime Freddy in Sister Location, Glamrock Freddy in Security Breach, and now Toy Freddy in Five Nights at Freddy's movie 2. And he's good. He's a good actor. I like him. For this portion of the movie, where there's a lot going on, in the actual plot itself, there's like nothing going on. All you really need to know is that, oh, the animatronics, they're evil and they're gonna kill people. It doesn't give us anything about the marionette. It doesn't give us anything about Michael Afton. It just kind of does a whole lot of nothing for a while, which, again, I do like seeing the animatronics out and about. I love the practical designs they made for this movie, real life Five Nights at Freddy's, can't pass that up. But, as a movie itself, stuff kind of needs to be going on. We do get a whole lot of flashback scenes, especially at the start of this movie, of Vanessa recounting the trauma from her father, because William Afton, he killed a lot of kids. He probably was not the best parent, and lo and behold, he wasn't. He actually kind of sucked. There's this whole scene where Vanessa's trying to hide from William, and she ends up stumbling upon Baby, which is like one of the coolest scenes in the movie, I'm not sure if they actually made a whole Baby animatronics. I wouldn't assume so, but it looks really good. It was a cool scene, and I was actually really surprised that they don't use Baby at all in the movie after this. I thought it was setting up like, oh, Baby's here now. No. Besides these flashbacks, William Afton actually is not used at all in this movie. They actually name a couple times that he's dead, which, you'd think, after what happens in the first movie, he's dead. But, if you played the games, William Afton does not die from that. He just rots in his suit for forever, and he's more evil now, which I do like that. That's cool. And I was actually really disappointed when I originally saw that they didn't really use William Afton, but looking at it now, I'm pretty happy because now they can fully utilize like him being Springtrap for the third movie, which they of course tease at the end of this movie. So while I think it would have been cool to see a bit more William Afton, I'm also, I get it, and I think that they could cook. Maybe, I don't know. This movie doesn't really give a whole lot of evidence towards that, but You never know. We get all these scenes of the toy animatronics breaking into people's houses to kill people's parents, which is actually kind of creepy to see the animatronics talking to the kids. You know, especially the scene of Toy Bonnie, you know, he's hanging out with the kid, and he's like, I gotta go talk to your parents, and he's gonna go fucking kill him. But eventually, they all get lured into Mike's house, and, you know, they're being surrounded. It's also around this time where Abby gets infected by that puppet virus I was talking about earlier, where I was like, oh shit, did they just kill a child? No, they did not kill a child. She gets healed like a minute later. I was pretty confused on what was even going on with that, but Abby is a villain for a second. But yeah, at the end, all the toy animatronics are huddled around all the main characters, and they're gonna kill them. And then I'm not kidding when I say this. There is an Avengers Endgame to your left moment, you know. The original animatronics from the first movie, they come in. I don't know how they got there. They don't set it up. This is the first time they're showed in the movie, and they kill the other animatronics. You know, they beat them the fuck up. Kind of like at the end of the Twisted Ones book. Have you ever read that book? And that's just kind of how the movie wraps up. You know, the animatronics, they're all killed. The old spirits are set free, and that's pretty much it. I would actually say that the ending of this movie is definitely its weakest part, and I think if they were able to make it a much better ending, this movie wouldn't have a 13% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I just think that they were extremely rushed, and they didn't have enough screen time to actually give an ending that was super satisfying. So like, yeah, we're just gonna bring back all the old animatronics, we're gonna have them fight in like an endgame battle scene, except, you know, it's done with 2% of the budget. And then of course we get our final scene with Michael Afton. He's caught, and we don't know what happens to him. I assume he'll be back for the third movie. I hope, at least. You know, I thought he was okay as like an actor, but he just doesn't do a whole lot in this movie, so there's not a whole lot to base it after. But yeah, that was the Five Nights at Freddy's movie 2. It wasn't that good, honestly. My favorite parts of the movie are, of course, just looking at all this, like, recognizable imagery, which I know makes me sound like a little dumb child, which, yeah, I am. But, you know, just seeing all this cool stuff, you know, I saw when I was a kid, and now seeing it on the big screen, it's magical. You know, it's the same reason why I love the Mario movie, I love the Sonic movies, even though I can really see those movies are very flawed, and I'm not surprised why critics don't love them. You know, for me, seeing all these recognizable characters on the big screen is almost enough for me. And I know, again, I might sound dumb for saying that. I don't care. But that's not to say that the actors in this movie didn't do a good job. In fact, I would say they did a better job than in the first movie, which I already thought they did a pretty good job in. I already talked about the animatronic voice actors, which aren't really that big in the movie anyway. But, you know, you got Mike, Josh Hutcherson. Love that guy. You know, he was great in Hunger Games. He's the GOAT. I love him. And then, of course, you got Piper Rubio as Abby, which was one of the most criticized things about the first movie, which I do find a little dumb. I mean, you know, you can criticize an actor as much as you want, but she's also a young child, so I don't see the point, and people are like, I fucking hate Abby. She's just a child. I feel bad, saying... She did a good job in this movie, actually. She did a much better job in this movie than she did in the first one, so... And then there's Elizabeth Lail as Vanessa. She does a good job. Again, I think Vanessa's character is a little bit confusing in these movies, so it's kind of hard to gauge what's even going on with her, but she did a good job. And then there's the GOAT, Matthew Lillard. He is honestly like the perfect casting for William Afton, in my opinion. He did such a good job in the first movie and was criminally underused, and he's also pretty criminally underused in this movie, but they do set it up that for the third movie, he's going to be the main star, or at least the main villain, so I'm excited to see that. I love Matthew Lillard. He's the greatest Shaggy actor of all time, and he does a pretty good job at William Afton, too. So, could I recommend this movie to the average moviegoer? Probably not, but if you're a Fnaf fan like me, you know, go ahead, you're gonna love it. I loved it, you know, for the parts that you could love about it, you know, not for the plot itself, but for looking at all the cool shit. And, yeah, if you like Fnaf, go see it. If you don't like Fnaf, I don't know, do what you want.